talk about the essentials that an executive should know about the Tuscany region in Italy. When we say wine essentials, among other things, we mean what are the grapes that comprise the wines of a given region, what are the flavors and aromas that you can expect to detect in wine from that region and those grapes. Thirdly, how do we pair that with food, or how do we pair food with those wines? And then fourthly, what are the bottles that are so well known that you really should know them, the bottles that you should recognize on a list. In terms of essentials specific to Tuscany, one thing I think a lot of us associate with Tuscany is Chianti, a very drinkable, nice red wine. Another thing people associate with Chianti, or at least you should, is Big Brunello. Brunello is actually a clone of the same grape that makes Chianti, but this is one of the most important and expensive and age-worthy wines that Italy produces. And in terms of whites, I would remember Vernaccia. It comes from a very nice town called San Gimignano in Italy, and they make a nice white wine. So these are really the essentials specific to Tuscany that I would recall. Geographically, Tuscany is within Italy. It centers around Florence. It's somewhat central, as you can see on the map. And in Tuscany, the real big red grapes are Sangiovese, an important red grape. This is the grape in Chianti. Brunello, which is a clone of the Sangiovese grape, right? It means little brown one, so it's a clone of the Sangiovese grape. And in terms of white grapes, I would remember Vernaccia. Right? Vernaccia is also another wine that perhaps not as many people will know, but I think it's worth remembering in terms of fine whites that come out of Italy. Let's start with the reds, and let's start with Sangiovese. And this is really the wine that people identify with, or the grape that people identify with Tuscany, the Sangiovese grape. Or you can almost just make it synonymous with Chianti. It's the real driver behind the Chianti wines. And Chianti is an area in Italy. If you were to say Chianti Classico, that's another labeling, anything you'll see on the label, that limits it to a very specific area of Chianti. If someone brings you a Chianti or a Sangiovese, what can you expect to detect in that wine? I think off the nose, something you would get would be, let's say, tart cherries, violet aromas. I detect often leather, kind of like if you walked into a store that sells leather goods, and baked clay, very earthy characteristic. This is not a delicate wine, and in fact, sometimes it has a bitter finish that people associate with Chianti and with the grape. Not undesirable, but present. In pairing that with food, the obvious choice is Italian food. So here, if you were to pair something with red pasta, with pizza, with spaghetti, I mean, this is the wine for pairing. And of course, a country's and a region's culinary history often grows hand in hand with its wine history. This is certainly the case. So, very good match for the dishes of the region, the pasta dishes. Here, red sauces, basil, oregano, spices, very typical for this region, and very nice pairs with the Chianti. What would I remember? Well, I would remember to think more than just Chianti. So if you want to raise the quality of the bottle of Chianti that you're receiving, what I would know is that Chianti Classico is a more specific description of a subset of Chianti. So here this is more to the heart of Chianti, and then Reserva indicates the finer wines from a given maker. So if you wanted to find something that was, let's say, an indicator of quality, look for Chianti Classico Reserva, and I think there it will steer you in the right direction. Now, in all honesty, most Chiantis are good. Even less expensive Chiantis I still think are quite nice, and they're often not paired with the most robust feast or the fanciest feast you've ever had. Often they're with casual food and friends and so on. Now, what about Brunello? Brunello is Chianti, but in a fancier context. Brunello, as I mentioned, stands for little brown one. Here, this is a clone of the Sangiovese grape that was originally grown around Montalcino. So the longer name for the wine is Brunello di Montalcino, Brunello from Montalcino. Here, you can look for some of the same characteristics you would in a Chianti, but this is a finer, more age-worthy wine. So look for cherry, blackberry, again, leather I think you would pick up. I would look for wood, here, whether oak or cedar, but certainly wood, maybe a little more like forest wood, and fairly smooth tannins. The tannins are a bit more refined than the rougher tannins that you would see in a Chianti. How do you pair this with food? Here, I think this is a classic match for a steak. In Florence, they have what is known as bistecca alla fiorentina. It's the Florentine beefsteak, very famous. This would be the wine. You would pair a serious steak with a serious wine. Think meat sauces, full-flavored cheeses. Here, this version of a Sangiovese, the Brunello di Montalcino, which is made with a clone of Sangiovese, this can go with your fancier meals. And the finer Brunellos rival the finest wines in Italy. They are some of the finest wines in Italy. In terms of bottles to know, the biggest producer is Castello Banfi. The producer that you would want to know in terms of history and having made these wines for a long time and pioneered in this area is Biondi Santi. Yeah, so both make Brunello, but if you want the sort of a fine bottle with a lot of history, think Biondi Santi. Castello Banfi you will find. This will be on many wine lists that you'll come across. Let's shift to the white grapes. The white grape that I would know from this area, from Tuscany, is the Vernaccia grape. The Vernaccia grape comes from San Gimignano, so like Brunello di Montalcino, Brunello from Montalcino. This is Vernaccia di San Gimignano, from San Gimignano. With the Vernaccia, think lime, peaches, very floral. You'll get a lot of character off of the Vernaccia wine. Think oak and flint. Flint is sort of a stone characteristic. This wine also has a bit of a bitter finish sometimes that people notice. Very good pairing with fish, grilled seafood, lemon chicken, so let's say things in a lighter style. Also with simple pasta or simply with vegetables, it would be fine. Here, Teruzzi and Putod would be the maker of Vernaccia. If you were to remember one, I would look for that one on the label. Truth is, a lot of them are fine. I wouldn't be so picky about that. But if you were to look for one, this is the one that would be perhaps a bit more iconic than others. So the essentials out of Tuscany. First and foremost, Chianti, very drinkable wine. This is the wine to go with your Italian food. Also can make some very fine wines, and if you want to elevate the quality, look for perhaps Chianti Classico or Classico Reserva. Big Brunello. Brunello is made from a clone of the Sangiovese grape. Here this makes some very serious wines, very age-worthy wines. And then for whites, I would try Vernaccia. Vernaccia from San Gimignano. Here, not as many people will perhaps know Vernaccia, but it is very specific to the region and it makes very quality whites.